Hey, welcome. Let's start with a quick thought experiment. Right now, as you're sitting or standing there, what's holding you up? It's this incredible living framework of over 200 bones. But it's so much more than just a scaffold. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and explore the secret life of the human skeleton.
So how do we move? I mean, really, have you ever stopped to think about it? It seems so simple, right? How you walk across the room, or run, or even just pick up a cup of coffee? The answer is this absolute marvel of biological engineering, and it all starts with the foundational system that was literally built to get us from A to B. So, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the big picture, what we call the locomotor system. Then, we'll dive into the skeleton itself, kind of like a map. We'll check out the different types of bones, take a peek at what's going on inside them, and wrap up with how everything is connected to let us move.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the locomotor system. Now, locomotion sounds kind of fancy, but all it really means is the ability to move from one place to another. But for a human, that's not as simple as it sounds. It's this constant dance, a battle against gravity and friction, all while our body is trying to be as efficient as it possibly can.
Really, it all comes down to a partnership. Think of it like this. Your skeleton is the strong, rigid frame of a car. It gives you structure, right? But a car frame can't go anywhere by itself. It needs an engine. And that's where the muscular system comes in. It provides all the power, the force needed to actually move that heavy, rigid frame. The two together, that's our locomotor system.
So now, let's zoom in on our main focus, this incredible map of the skeleton. And to really get a handle on a structure this complex, you got to break it down into its biggest parts. It's a classic way to learn anything, really. You classify it to clarify it. Our entire skeleton is basically split into two major divisions. First, you've got the axial skeleton. It runs right down the center line of your body, your axis. We're talking the skull, the vertebral column, and the rib cage. Its main job? Protection. This is the body armor for your brain, your spinal cord, and all those vital organs. Then, you have the appendicular skeleton. And that's pretty much everything else. All your appendages. Arms, legs, shoulders, pelvis. Its main job is, you guessed it, movement.
So how does that break down number-wise? Well, a typical adult has 206 bones. That protective axial core we just talked about, that's made of 80 bones. But the appendicular skeleton, all our limbs, has a whopping 126 bones. Now, why so many more? A huge part of that is because of the incredible complexity and dexterity we need in our hands and feet. And speaking of that axial skeleton, you have to appreciate its centerpiece, the spine. It isn't just some straight rod. It actually has this really distinct S-curve. And this is just a brilliant piece of natural engineering. It helps us stay balanced, which is super important since most of our heavy organs are up front. And it also acts like a spring, absorbing shock every single time you take a step. Okay, so we've got this map of 206 bones. But here's the thing, they aren't all the same shape, far from it. So let's take a look at the four main shapes that bones come in, and you'll see how each one is perfectly designed for its specific job.
We can pretty much classify most of the bones in your body into these four groups: long, short, flat, and irregular. And it all comes down to that old idea of form following function. The shape tells you the job.
First up, we've got long bones. This is probably the classic bone shape you picture in your head. They're longer than they are wide, and they act as these powerful levers for our body. Just think of the femur in your thigh or the humerus in your upper arm. They're what give us our reach and our long stride.
Next are the short bones. These are the kind of chunky, cube-shaped bones you'd find in your wrists and ankles. Their job isn't about big, sweeping movements. Instead, their whole deal is to provide stability and support in areas that need to be both incredibly strong and super flexible.
Flat bones are pretty cool. They're like the body's personal shields. They're thin, often a little curved, and they have two main jobs. First, protecting our vital organs, like the bones of your skull protecting your brain. And second, they provide a big, broad surface for muscles to attach to, like your scapula, your shoulder blade.
And finally, we have the everything else category, the irregular bones. These guys have really specialized, complex shapes that just don't fit anywhere else. The vertebrae in your spine or the bones that make up your pelvis are perfect examples. Their unique shapes are just perfectly tailored to their very specific functions. Okay, so we've seen the outside, we've mapped the skeleton and looked at the different shapes. But now, we're going to go inside. Because here's the big secret. Bones are not just dry, dead calcium sticks.
They are dynamic, living organs with an entire world thriving inside of them.
So, if we were to take a long bone and slice it open, you'd see two main parts. You have the long central shaft, and then you have the two ends of the bone. And these two very different regions are home to some very different and very important stuff. And this is where it gets really amazing. Inside that central shaft, we find yellow marrow, which is mostly fat, that our body can use for energy storage. But inside the ends of the bone, that's where we find red marrow. And this is incredible. The red marrow is the factory where your body produces billions of new red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets every single day.
I mean, that just drives the whole point home, doesn't it? Your skeleton is not just some passive scaffold. It is a living system, humming with nerves and blood vessels, and it literally houses the factory that constantly replenishes your blood, keeping you alive. It's wild. So we know bones provide structure, and they even produce our blood. But they're rigid things, right? So how do all 206 of these hard parts work together to give us smooth, fluid motion? Well, the answer lies in the connections between them, the joints.
And we can basically classify joints by how much movement they allow. It's pretty straightforward. On one end of the spectrum, you have your fully mobile joints. In the middle, you've got semi-mobile ones, and on the far other end, you have joints that don't move at all, immobile joints.
Let's look at some quick examples. Your shoulder or your knee. They give you a huge range of motion. Those are mobile joints. Now the bones in your skull, they're fused together, locked tight. Those are immobile joints. They prioritize protection over any kind of flexibility. And then you have the really interesting ones in the middle, the semi-mobile joints, like the ones between your vertebrae. Each individual joint only moves a tiny bit, but when you add all those little movements up, you can bend and twist your entire back.
So after looking at all of this, we circle back to a final thought. It's so easy to just think of our skeleton as a static, boring frame. But when you realize it's a dynamic, living system that provides structure, allows us to move, and produces our very own blood, you start to see it for what it truly is. So is it just a scaffold, or is it the living engine of our body?